Okay, there's the live stream going here. Let me go ahead and post this to Twitter here really quick for those of you who see me popping up here. Let me post this. Let's see, you guys tell me if you can hear me here too. Hashtag Oregon weather, hashtag BC storm, hashtag Idaho weather, hashtag Montana weather. Looks like we got some people chatting in here already. There we go. All right. Got some viewers already, so yeah. Take a look at stuff here. Loud and clear. Good to hear. Okay, awesome. Very low volume. Okay, I'm not sure why that would... I'm probably a little bit far away from the mic. Can you guys hear me now? Portland, Oregon. Yeah, you know, so we're going to go through the model runs here. See, loud and clear. We can hear you. Low volume. Great audio level. Okay, turn up your volume then over there. Yeah, so things have been trending a little bit better here so far. I'm going to do like Q&A and just kind of show you the live models. I just got home. I haven't had a time to look over things much. But you can see on the infrared, you can see this Arctic air sliding down into BC here. This is kind of the leading edge of this Arctic front coming into the region here. And there's been some model disagreement you guys have probably heard about between like the GFS and the Canadian and the European model here. The GFS took a little bit of a right step in the direction towards snow, but still an outlier, much warmer than the other two models. Hello from Seattle, Index, Washington. Loud and clear. You know, Portland actually, if the European is right, Portland's going to have a chance for some snowfall here as well as we go on into Tuesday. It trended upwards for Portland here this last run also. And yeah, east of the Cascades, really whatever moisture gets over there is going to fall as precipitation. Washington, Oregon, British Columbia as well. Just the issue is it's going to be a little bit rain shadow, but we'll look at some of the maps here as well, and we'll see what the snowfall totals look like. Yeah, the Canadian, the GEM model has been looking pretty good as well. North Idaho. Yeah, there was some crazy freezing fog this morning. I mean, it frosted over the roads here in Normandy Park. It was kind of slick out there this morning. It kind of lasted till the afternoon also. It was pretty hard frost last night. Everett, Chilliwack, Port Angeles. All right, got people from all over. Okay, we got 187 people watching here. So I'll show you what's been going on here quickly. So you can see this is the European on the left, the newest run, the 18Z, and the GFS on the right, the 18Z. We're going to compare like the GFS and the NAM and the European here. But let's go ahead and I'll scroll this into motion. You can see that gray coming down through British Columbia there. That's that Arctic air. It's very dry. And you can see it move over the ocean here on both models. But the GFS is a little bit weaker with it coming off the shoreline there. Then watch what happens. The GFS likes to shunt this moisture pretty far north here. And then as it moves towards the coastline, you can see some cyclogenesis occurring here right off of Haida Gwaii. A pretty deep low pressure system off the north tip of Vancouver Island showing up there about Tuesday morning here on the GFS. You'll notice the European does not have that feature. Now, this is going to be interesting because this is a lot of cold air spilling out over the ocean here. Then you get some of the specific moisture riding underneath this Arctic high here, and kind of a sneaky low pressure system is going to bring snowfall back across southwest Washington in towards even the Portland area here and potentially spreading up across the central Puget Sound. The models are still not in perfect agreement on how much is going to be dumped in any one location. But really, this is a really nice upward trend here for some of the models here this today, really, from this morning on in through this afternoon. Current overlay is blocking the... Oh, okay, I see my head. Sorry about that. Here, I'll make myself smaller there. There we go. So now you can see BC and Washington a little bit better there. So now let's go ahead and take a look. So that's basically the take from this. You see this moisture that moved up towards Vancouver Island. That's going to generate a storm off the north tip of Vancouver Island there, versus you do not see that here on the left on the European model there, which allows colder air doesn't allow it per se, but it's going to bring colder air down in with it as a low pressure develops along this boundary here, this colder Arctic air and the warmer Pacific air to the south. And this is going to be really a system that's going to be hard to get a grasp on really until it's occurring. And it may come in a little bit deeper than forecast, which is pretty typical with these storms as they interact with an Arctic high. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm trying to read the chat messages here as we go at the same time. Okay, there we go. Yeah, channel's going pretty well, guys. So now let's take a look here. This is the European on the left versus the NAM on the right. Now we're looking at the same thing here. We're looking, let me scroll ahead a little bit here. Here comes the Arctic air down the coastline here, and we'll stop it there. You can see the NAM and the European are in pretty good agreement here with that cold air coming off the coastline there. Now we'll go a little bit further. Now we're going to scroll a little bit ahead here, and I want to show you the moisture. You see that moisture kind of riding a little bit further north on the NAM here, but not like what the GFS was showing there. And you can see that wave now moving towards the Washington, Oregon coast on the NAM, much closer to what the European is showing there. So that's why the GFS is of low confidence. The Canadian model also showing the same thing with that Pacific moisture moving into southwest Washington or right along the Columbia River, the mouth of the Columbia there. The European, the Canadian, the NAM are all showing that. The GFS is the only one showing that strong storm pretty far north, which would bring warmer air into the area much quicker. So I thought I'd share that with you guys. That's why I don't have high confidence in the GFS right now. Now, this is looking at the Canadian on the left versus the GFS on the right. So we're going to be taking a look at the GFS again. We'll scroll this into motion here. You can see that Arctic air and this gray air moving down. Of course, much more on the Canadian there. You can see it's got it over the interior BC here on the GFS. Now, put that into motion. Look at all this moisture that gets up north here on the GFS. And again, the Canadian in much more agreement here with the European and closer to what the NAM is saying. Even though the Canadian is colder and has this storm system even a little further south, more into Oregon at this point. Okay, now I'm going to do some chat messages here. I see a lot of them scrolling across here. Yeah, over 300 viewers right now. That's good. California, I mean, I haven't even looked at California, been so hyper-focused, but we'll look at some of the maps here and see if we get a hint at what's coming for California also. Models are changing a bit. Yeah, the models will continue to change, but right now we're getting some decent consistency, turning it's a little colder than it was yesterday for sure, and better snow possibilities do exist, and they really do include the northern Willamette Valley even, and much of western Washington, southwest BC. Really, every place is in play except for maybe areas south of Salem, I would say at this point. But even then, there still can be changes that include some of all of the Willamette Valley, I should say. Is freezing rain still possible for the area on Thursday? Yes, there is a freezing rain potential as well, and I'll show you that here coming up. Let's go ahead and show this. You see, as we've got Arctic air kind of in place here by the time we're into very early Thursday morning here. This is about 1 a.m. Thursday, and you can see this atmospheric river just kind of pumping up towards the Pacific Northwest. And if the Canadian is right, there's going to be a lot of cold air in place, and there's going to be Pacific moisture moving over the top of that cold air. So you're going to get cold air trapped at the surface, which when you bring rain over the top of that will create kind of that glaze or that ice at the surface. And that can be a real problem for some of the areas. And we do occasionally get big ice storms here. I mean, the last one was 2012 for Seattle. We had a big one in 1996 as well. So they do happen. And if you get a Pacific system running into that cold air mass and you trap that cold air at the surface, you can get freezing rain. So that is potential here as we go through really on into Thursday morning, I think is about when the start of that would occur. Will it start to snow tonight in the Fraser? Right. We'll look at some of those maps here coming up in a moment. Northern Nevada. We'll take a look at that if we can get to it here coming up here. But thank you, Julie, for the support there. If you guys want to ask, if you leave any donations like that, you can ask questions and I will answer those first. Also, just because there's so many coming on here, but. Yeah, Night of the Breaking Trees. That was, 1996 was really exceptional. We had ice just covering the trees and when I was in the East Hill of Kent there, south of Seattle. And we had a lot of tree damage, all kinds of stuff. My anemometer was completely frozen over for at least a day, I think. It was just wild. So this right now, you're looking at precipitable water here. The dry air is the very gray here shown. And then you can see out over the Pacific, you can see some tropical moisture out here. So this is higher moisture content out there. Now, I want to show you what we just talked about a little bit there. Oh, thank you, Kale. Very nice, very generous of you. Now, taking a look here, you've got the European on the left and the European of this morning on the right. So this is the initial Arctic front coming down. Can you see this gray through British Columbia here? That's the Arctic front wringing out any moisture out in front of it here. And this is going to come off the coastline here, ride back in here, and it's going to cause some convergent zone activity with some very cold air aloft here. We'll easily drop the snow level down to the surface by the time we get towards Sunday. Now, you can see that activity here across some of the South BC here, up above Everett, or north of Everett, I should say. And they've seen interesting feature here across the central Puget Sound as well, which could bring some measurable snowfall to the Seattle area, even as far south as SeaTac here. This is very late Sunday night into Monday morning, possible convergent zone action across some of the Puget Sound area there. Then you can see the next system start to slide in here. The slug of moisture coming out the Pacific. We're going to have some pretty cold air in place here. The system's going to move in, and it's actually going to reinforce some of this cold air behind it. So really, there's going to be a sweet spot on the north side of this precipitation that moves in that's going to get a real dynamic snowfall on the north side of this. You're going to get at least several inches, and it's going to be below freezing, and it's going to be pretty disruptive. But you can see the pretty good agreement here between the 18Z European and the 12Z. And you can kind of see this weak low pressure system off the coast. It's even weaker here on the 18Z because it's trended even a little bit colder in the models here. So put that into motion, and you can see this cold front just sweep down through Oregon here on through eastern Washington, Oregon as we go. You'll see a little bit of rain shadowing going on through eastern Washington, but some of eastern Oregon could get snowfall as well, including Pendleton, out through Pullman, Idaho, Panhandle, western Montana is going to get very cold. Some very cold Arctic air coming down east of the Rockies as well as setting up over British Columbia here. Now let me answer some more messages here. Here we go. So really, the limitation is going to be how much moisture you get into any one area. Once the cold air gets in place, you just need moisture to deal with it. But there's going to be a point where you get the Arctic air flowing off the continent, and things are going to dry off from north to south across the area here. So the colder we trend, initially, you'll probably get some convergent zone activity north of Seattle up towards southwest BC. Then you're going to dry out there, and the second wave looks like it's going to be mainly Seattle, Everett, south towards Portland at that point. But then we're going to have another Pacific system after this start to approach the coastline here. And look at this monster offshore here. Now you can see very cold air behind the Cascades at this point and into BC here. And there's going to be very cold air trapped in these valleys here in the Cascades, and especially up into British Columbia here. So there could be another significant snowfall, or this could cause a freezing rain event for some select areas as well. Some very cold air is going to be in place, especially up through British Columbia here. It would probably start as snow in Seattle, especially as of this morning's run there as well. Okay, let's try to do some more chat here. How do you become a premium channel member? So there's a thing, if you look down below the videos here, you can see a button that says join. Click on that, and then you can click what member group you want to sign up for. And I will have the members scrolling again tomorrow. I have a new computer, so I have to like work it out and update all my settings and stuff. So I know that wasn't on today's video, but any snow and granite, definite chance of snow and granite falls, both with the convergent zone coming in, initial system, and then again as we go on in through. This is showing Thursday morning here, this precipitation bearing down on us. This is going to be really a kind of a crazy time here coming up midweek. I mean, we have high-end disruption potential coming up here with like a freezing rain event, and snow is going to be an issue for some areas with this system coming in, because this is a pretty strong Pacific system rolling in to an Arctic air mass that's going to be in place. It's going to get crazy if this verifies here across the Pacific Northwest. What are the odds of a major snowstorm in lower mainland Fraser up into beach? That's, I mean, it's not bad. The cold air is on its way. So we have to watch these systems come one at a time. But initially, you might not get that much. But again, that second system could end up trending further north and including southwest BC. And then this one, as you can see here, is really going to encapsulate the entire area. So we have to watch these really carefully as they come in. So really anywhere is in play, really central Willamette Valley right now, all the way up through southwest BC. And of course, goes without saying, eastern Washington, BC is going to get extremely cold. I mean, look at the high pressure there in eastern, actually central Montana here, 1061 millibar high, very high pressure, indicative of a very strong Arctic air mass coming down over the area. Portland has a real chance of getting some snow. Let's go ahead and look at that here really quick here. Oh, I almost spoiled it for you there, but let's go ahead and put this into motion. This morning's run is on the right. This is this afternoon's run here, or late mornings, I should say, on the left. So you can see the initial snowfall coming up here with the Arctic front. You can see places up towards Vancouver could start getting some snowfall here as early as Saturday night into Sunday morning. Then as you go on into Sunday night, you can see some convergent zone activity, probably going to be setting up around Arlington. Everett's going to get some snow as well. You can see this convergent zone setting up towards Seattle here. That's SeaTac there at 1.9 inches. I believe that's SeaTac. But then you'll see the next wave start to move in here. And you'll notice this morning's was snowier, and that's because this moisture on this morning's European moved a little bit further north. But since we're trending a little bit colder in this morning's run here, or this late morning's run here, or I should just say this afternoon European here on the left, it's a little bit less snowy, but more snowy here for Portland here, as the colder air is going to make it further south at this point. So you can see all this stuff at play. This is probably going to waffle back and forth here over the next few days, depending on the strength of the system. Now, the only thing about when the system rolls in here, a lot of the times these systems trend a little bit deeper as versus what the models say, which will give it a little bit more activity northward than this. So you could easily bring snow north of Everett once you slam some Pacific moisture into this cold air. We'll have to see how that goes. All right, I'll answer some more messages here. Nick Barker, welcome to second tier channel support. Thank you very much. Portland, Eastern Washington. You can see Eastern Washington in here. I mean, you can see, look at Pullman down there, Southeast Washington, out towards Wazoo out there, Washington State. Nice snowfall coming potentially. Spokane could get some nice snow out of this as well, Northeast Oregon. But you see kind of the snow shadowing going on here across portions of Central Oregon and Central Washington here. But Ellensburg could still do pretty well, and it's going to get really cold over there also. So let's go ahead and check out this. Actually, let's do the temperatures here first. So this is the European of 10 a.m. and 4 a.m. on the right here. You can see the Arctic air march down across British Columbia here. And look, by the time we get into Sunday night here, look, Seattle falls below freezing. Look at Southwest BC here. And you can see Bellingham, very cold, probably down to the 20s by this point. 28 at Seattle now. This is by Monday morning here. The potential convergent zone across the Central Sound there. Hold on, let me answer this question here. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Joanna. Thanks for the support. Right to the computer fund there. So now you can see here, we're already down into the 20s here by Monday morning for Seattle. Keep that going, and you can kind of see this boundary between the cold air coming off the continent here and the warmer air to the south, and that's where this low pressure is going to develop here. How strong it's going to be, we don't quite know yet. And you kind of see that warm tongue reaching all the way up towards Astoria here on this morning's run. And that is further south here on the later run here on into this afternoon. And that's because we're trending a little bit colder here. As you can see, Seattle at 25 here by the time we get to Tuesday afternoon, 23, 21. Look at that. Seattle down into the teens by Wednesday morning here. And look at, you could be down into the single digits up across some of Southwest BC or Bellingham if the European verifies here. But you can see it is colder versus this morning's run. But the trade-off for the colder air is it's going to push the moisture a little bit further south here. Ted Thornton, thanks for the support. Snow likely for Victoria, probably at some point. Yes, I would say the odds are increasing rapidly Portland north for your snowfall potential here for the next few days, certainly. Now I want to show you guys this here. This is the temperature at 5,000 feet. I want to show you what's going on here. I can kind of explain things a little bit more here. There's that Arctic air. Pretty good agreement here between the 10 a.m. and the 4 a.m. run shown there. You'll see that air rush into Western Washington here. And then here we go with this next system. You see this boundary here? You can see the warm air right across that northern Oregon coast here, but a little bit further south here on the 10 a.m. run. So as we put that into motion here, you can see this colder air rushing in even quicker here on the 10 a.m. run versus the 4 a.m. run. So trending a little bit colder here on the European run as we are going on in through the day today, but that's going to open up the door for some northern Willamette Valley action, Southwest Washington action as well. But again, I have a hunch this system will come in stronger than forecast and probably spread moisture further north than what the models indicate if this scenario were to verify. And models are coming into agreement here as far as let me look at the NAM here. Let's see if we can show the NAM. I want to show a little bit more high resolution stuff here. Actually, the NAM isn't higher resolution, but I want to show another model here as well. So let's just go ahead and do the NAM 12km. And we're going to do upper air temperature, 850 millibars here. We'll continue. We'll put that up against, we'll just do the NAM by itself. What the heck? So this is, actually, we got the new nighttime NAM running here, folks, too. Let's see, what else is going on here? Any chat? Interesting. Oh, Pacific Northwest Weather Lover in here, one of the moderators. Leavenworth, Washington. Yeah, man, you guys are up high elevation. You're probably going to get some snow out of this, I would say, for sure. You can see the NAM is running right now. We only have the first 18 hours, so this will update as we go. So let's just go ahead and do this. We'll back up a little bit here. GoatX, thank you for the support. We'll do the 18Z NAM here, and we'll compare it to the 12Z. So this is 10 a.m. on the left, 4 a.m. on the right here, 5,000 feet. Pretty good agreement. You can see that stretch of cold air really blast into Western Washington here as we go on into Sunday and Monday morning here. We get some pretty cold air down over the area shown here. Then we bring this next system in here, and this is going to be just nuts because you can see this boundary right here. It's going to try to slam right into the Washington coast if you believe the NAM. And look at, this is trending colder also on the NAM. You can see this warmer air did extend further north on this morning's run versus the 10 a.m. run there. So you can see we are definitely trending colder in the European and the NAM. It'll be interesting to see what the GFS and the Canadian say tonight as well. Very nice. Super chat shows error. Well, I would restart the live stream and probably come back on again, and it might work. 618 people watching. Astoria Seaside, any chance? There is a little bit of a chance, yes. You can see as we're trending colder here, we're going to bring some interesting scenarios with it on the back side of this here. Now, let me just back out here a little bit. Let's do European. Let's do 850 millibars again, because we can go out a little bit further here. Upper air temperature. We're going to do temperature anomaly. And we're going to do control. So this goes at 144 hours here. Put this into motion. Let's update both sides of it here. Now you can see that cold air move out over the region, and then it comes back around here. Moves back down across the region, and you can see it does reach further down the Oregon coast. This is going to be really interesting, pretty dynamic system lining up here. Wow, Robert Snow, thank you for the support, buddy. I can use that with the new computer. Thank you very much, sir. How cold should it be for maximum snow? You know, the atmosphere holds the most moisture the closer you are to freezing, so you know, it's not bad to be around freezing, but then again, you're going to have a more dense snowpack if you're at 32 versus 28. The snow is not going to build up quite as much because it'll be more wet and heavy at 32 degrees versus 28. It'll be a little bit more light and fluffy at 28 degrees, for example. The GFS could be right, but it did back up a little bit this last run. So we'll see what it says tonight. It does make me a little bit nervous that GFS does not agree. But right now, the Canadian, the NAM, and the European all say the same thing. And it's hard to believe the GFS when those three models are all against it. And also, let's look at this here too. You can see this is the Ensemble run. And I want to caution, this can still bust for some areas. You know, this could end up missing Seattle in one way or another. There's always ways this could go wrong, but we are getting some better model agreement. You can see this is this morning's run here on the European. You can see there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, you know, it's getting up towards 20. So half the members say that you're going to get over 2 inches of snow for Seattle. And it's going to be pretty dynamic also. It's not going to be the type that we got in late November into December. We're probably looking at a little bit colder temperatures associated with the snow as it falls coming up here. Yes, you have hopes for Duval for sure. I mean, yeah. Duval, places north of Seattle here, especially that one coming in Thursday as well. It's going to be kind of nasty with that system coming in. And this is what I'm talking about here. Look at this specific storm out here. Pretty darn strong. And we're going to be running this into an Arctic air mass here. Let's see if I can display this a little bit more meaningfully. Let's go surface temperature anomaly, Fahrenheit. Now look what's going on Thursday morning. Look at the temperatures across the Pacific Northwest as this thing starts to barrel down on us here, folks. This is a lot of cold air. This is going to be an extremely disruptive storm for some places, like big time. So, I mean, and it's trending that way. So I know the National Weather Service has been really good about it. They like to make sure they're not hyping up these events, but this is like, you know, it's almost to the point where we're going to start sounding alarms. Once the GFS starts to come in line with what the European is saying here, then we can really get confident. There still is some uncertainty right now. Yeah, Charles May control run had temps in the mid-20s. Yes, it's going to be cold when it's snowing, especially on the north side of that deformation, man. Robert Crawford, thank you for the support, sir. Yeah, if the GFS was saying snow and every other model was saying no, that is a good point, because then nobody would believe it at all. So let's look at the actual temperature here, Fahrenheit, and look at some of these temperatures when this moves in. This is kind of ridiculous looking here. You're having some temperatures in the teens across western Washington all the way down to the Willamette Valley when some of this Pacific moisture starts making its way in. And this is the 12Z here. The layer one held this moisture off a little bit longer here, but this is going to be a very painful transition for some areas here as we have really cold air in place. Northern Whatcom County, yeah, you're gonna have at least 2 good chances here for some snows. Mountain passes will be ugly for sure. Yeah, it's already pretty chilly out there as well. I mean, we've been cooling off pretty well overnight, especially east of the Cascades, you guys. So you can imagine these temperatures hovering into the teens here when this system starts bearing down. I mean, you look at Portland, 10 degrees here as of Thursday morning. You know, and we still have to use caution with this as well. This can still change, but right now the trend is definitely showing some impactful weather headed our way. I would definitely check on your flights on Tuesday morning out of SeaTac for sure. I mean, I would check as early as Sunday night, really, for SeaTac, because any kind of snow, the problem is at the airport that when you bring, you're just dealing with planes that have steel wings and they've been up in the air, and the temperatures can be very cold on the wings and they can land. And if it's snowing and not even sticking on the streets, it sticks on the wings of the planes first. So it can be a huge problem. You can be driving to the airport, and if it's snowing and not sticking on the streets, it can be sticking on the wings of the planes. And then we have to de-ice all the planes. We cannot have any contamination on the aircraft at all, because you know, it disrupts the airflow. It messes with the physics of flight here, and you cannot have it. So that's why things get disrupted at SeaTac pretty easily. And depending on the timing of the snowfall, it can be pretty disruptive for the airport. And this includes all airlines, not just any one given airline here. It will get crazy at SeaTac here once it starts to snow. It's really hard to avoid that fact. Chris Upham, thank you very much, sir, for the support. Okay, what do you guys want to look at now? Actually, let's look at this here first before we start taking requests. So here we go. You can see that Arctic air starting to move down out of BC. Look at, can you guys see this here? I'll zoom in a little bit more, but you can see these north winds coming down here through British Columbia here off the continent and wrapping back around into Western Washington at this point. This would be Saturday morning shown here. So we're going to start to get probably some rain and snow mix during Saturday evening. But once we start this up north, the Fraser River outflow, it's going to really quickly start to cool down and start to accumulate in some of these convergence zone bands north of Seattle here as we go. Now, it's going to be interesting here as we go on in through Monday morning too. You can see at 5,000 feet, there's some convergence zone signature going across the Central Sound here. It could affect the Seattle Metro, even downtown Seattle here as we go on in through early Monday morning across the area here. And then if we look closely here, you can see the next system way out here starting to make its way in here. And let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to back up to the control, and we'll do 850 millibar winds if we can. Oh, it doesn't let you do that. Interesting. Okay. So we'll just do surface winds here. Now, I want to show you guys this here. Oh, this is the Ensemble mean. That's why. Okay, so let's go ahead. That's why I was confusing myself. This is the control here. Let's go ahead and run this. So you can see the system here pointed at the Oregon coast, but it's going to spread moisture quite a bit further north here. You can see the southerlies out here, right about, what is that? Maybe Tillamook there, a little bit further south than Tillamook there. And then you can see the north winds here. So it's going to be a pretty dynamic system. You can see the Fraser River outflow winds going here, pushing cold air down across the region, reinforcing shot of cold air, making its way all the way down the Oregon coast behind that system as well. So really, I mean, the European is pretty steadfast with this cold air coming in here. So it's going to be take a real dramatic shift here to change this. And then you can see the next Pacific storm here coming, and we're going to have very cold air in place here. And this kind of gives me goosebumps here looking at that. It's going to be a very interesting setup. Helmer Noel, thank you very much, sir. Thanks for the support. Phil Hyde, thank you very much, sir. Yeah, the GFS run will be coming here in the next couple hours. The UW model is similar to the GFS, so it's going to show similar to what the GFS is showing now. And I keep waiting for this GFS to get online here. It makes me a little bit nervous, even though all the other models say the same thing. How long will it stick around? Well, it's probably going to get eaten away with this system here. This will move in Thursday, but it's going to be a nasty transition. So there's still going to be snow on the ground for areas on in through Friday and probably Saturday, especially areas north where the air is colder. No, yeah, we can look at the extended there as well. Let's go ahead and look at this morning's European run here, and we'll just go ahead and back out a little bit. Oops, sorry about that. We'll go to North America so we can see what's coming up here. I want to look at upper air heights. So there's pretty good agreement here that we are going to warm up after this comes through. So there's that ridge. You can see that polar lobe dropping down into BC here. And that's what's going to give us our chilly air there. A little bit of a reinforcing shot shown there. And then you can see some ridging start to occur. We're starting to get some Pacific moisture in here at times here. And you can kind of see the southwest flow over the Pacific Northwest here. So we're definitely going to warm up here probably by the time we get into Christmas Eve and Christmas. Maybe a few lucky foothill areas, or there could be enough snowfall to consider a white Christmas for some areas, but you might have to have some elevation to do so. Yeah, that'll be the first time we've had above normal temperatures for a while now. It's been pretty unusually cold through December. And I don't know if you guys saw this during this morning's video, but let's go ahead and do this. You guys see this? December 15th, January, February, March, we continue to be below average here across Pacific Northwest. And of course, that would include British Columbia as well. So the signal's still going to be there as we go on in through January, February, and March. Abbotsford. Yeah, Abbotsford's kind of in the valley there. It's potential. You might have some snow still on the ground. I don't think you'll see snow falling during Christmas, but I shouldn't say that because that's still a ways out. I mean, it's a little bit far out there, but there's a possibility some snow could still be on the ground. Yeah, let's go ahead and look at that too, atmospheric river potential, because I did see some signs of that showing up through the extended there. So if you guys don't know what this is precipitable water here. This shows the amount of water in the atmosphere, and you can see this Arctic air is very dry. You can see it's just has very little moisture in it, but you can see out over the Pacific Ocean, much more moisture exists there. Let me back out a little bit here. I'm kind of getting a little bit constricted. Okay, so now if I put this into motion, there goes that Arctic air over the region here. Then it's going to be entrenched across the region here. But now look what's coming out here. This atmospheric river is going to try to run into us a little bit here, and we should have pretty cold air across the region. So it's going to be a real battle between this warm air off the Pacific and some cold air in places as that comes across. Then you can see some of this activity out here across Pacific as well. Some more atmospheric rivers well off into the extended here, but looking a little bit too far out there. This is 10 days out on the European. Yeah, freezing rain is no joke. I mean, you can damage, your nice trees in your yard. It brings branches down, power outages. It can coat the road. It's just, the airport will pretty much shut down. Any airport will pretty much shut down when you've got a decent amount of freezing rain falling. It is not fun. If you're trying to fly or travel, you're probably going to be huge amounts of cancellations. Yeah, La Nina's coming in pretty strong here this year, that's for sure. Yeah, I hope we don't warm up too much. I'm hoping that we can stay on the cooler side so those ski resorts don't have to deal with rain falling at the pass. Oh man, that would be nasty after getting all this snowfall to kind of ruin it with some rain. So you can see that Arctic air here. Someone just asked how far is that Arctic air going to extend. So if we back up here, this is as of Saturday afternoon. You can see it coming off the coastline here in this very dry air. Move into the Pacific Northwest here. Kind of clip the North Oregon coast here. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for the support. Then you can see that kind of ride in here with that next system. Then another reinforcing shot of Arctic air behind that. And that kind of clips Western Oregon there too as well. And really drives a strong cold front all the way down across the central USA. And look at some of this out into the east really quick. You got to admire this Arctic air merging with some of this subtropical moisture here. What a dynamic storm that would be for the East Coast. Wow. I mean, take a look at that. That is an incredible storm out there. We'll probably be hearing a lot about that after our weather calms down here a little bit here. But anyway, you can see that Arctic air really clips into Western Oregon here on the most latest runs. So if anybody just joining me now, we have over 700 people watching. You can see this 10 a.m. run here on the left is leaned a bit colder here, and this colder air gets more down into Oregon here, which would also limit the amount of precipitation getting back up into Western Washington, but also opens a possibility of significant snowfall to some of the northern Willamette Valley areas shown there. And let's go ahead and do this. I know the NAM is running right now, so let's go ahead and see how far we are with the NAM updated. Oh, let's do this. Helps if I click on the NAM, doesn't it? There we go, 12Z NAM. So we'll go here and we'll just compare it versus the 18Z. This is, we're watching this together here for the first time. How far are we out? Oh, we're still only 33 hours out here. Actually, let's check this out. Maybe we can check out some of, let's do Pacific Northwest. And let's check out the NAM 3KM and check this out. Let's look at, let's scroll through this. How far are we on the NAM 3KM? Oh, we're still not that far out here. But you can see some of the shower activity starting to return here as we go into Saturday. Some mixed rain with snow up there across the North Puget Sound. And that's even before the Fraser River Valley winds really start to get going here. You can see they're just starting at the end of the front. Can you guys see this little nose of winds coming down the Fraser River Gap here? This is late Saturday night. There it comes. And you can see the northwesterlies come down the Strait of Georgia here too. It's going to be some interesting convergent zone activity going on down here Saturday night into Sunday morning. So we'll just go ahead and let this continue to update here and watch these Arctic winds start to come down into the area. You can see the south winds across the sound right now, but then we're going to have some interesting battleground activity going on here Saturday night into Sunday morning. So let's take a look here. Let's go out into the GFS snow map here, and you can kind of see this. So people asking about Oregon here, I wanted to highlight this really quick. Here's the 10 a.m. run on the left. I showed this earlier, but we're going to go over it again. Here's the 4 a.m. run here on the right. You see the Willamette Valley in Portland pretty much left out here on this morning's run, but we trended colder, pushing colder air further south. Now it does include Portland here and places down into the Willamette Valley a little bit here, right? Just kind of cut off here just south of Portland there. Maybe that'll trend a little bit further as we go. Maybe not. We'll see how that goes. But you can see it means less snow for the central Puget Sound. The further south we bring that cold air and continue to push that system further south across the area, including areas north of Seattle as well, including, Whidbey Island, the San Juans would get less snowfall. But they're going to be another round here as we go on in through Thursday as another Pacific storm moves off the coastline as well. But yeah, check out the Cascade mountain range here. You can see pretty good snowfall amounts coming up for the Cascades. Pullman, northeast Oregon here. You can see a little bit of that snow shadow going on here through eastern Washington, Oregon as well. So Orlando, Florida, huh? Yeah, I've heard of Florida getting snowfall occasionally. Yeah, I see a lot of chat messages coming along here. Yeah, this La Nina is not disappointing so far, and things can still go wrong, but confidence is increasing pretty rapidly here. Trying to deal with looking at my chat messages as they come across here. Thanks for everybody for signing on here. It's like we got a pretty good chat going so far. So right now we're watching this NAM trying to update as we speak. What are we at now? Hour 34. But if you look closely here, actually, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more since we are concentrating on the Fraser River gap winds first. So looking closely here, you can see that northwest wind coming down the Strait of Georgia here and down the Fraser River gap here. And you can see these are going to be meeting up with some southerlies as well. There's going to be probably some measurable snowfall as we go through early Sunday morning here north of Seattle, and probably for southwest BC as well. How strong is the Arctic front compared to this? It's a different kind of setup here. I'd have to go back and look at the upper level chart to really give you a great description of that. But there's the potential for more snowfall for some areas versus last December. It just depends on how much cold air can spill off the continent and get back into the area here. And if that second reinforcing shot shown here can get in. If you'll notice this, you'll see the first shot of Arctic air come down, and you'll notice this wrapping off the coast of BC back into Western Washington there. That's the first shot of it. Then we get a system riding underneath this Arctic high here, and then another shot of reinforcement here, cold air moving down across the area, even a little bit colder. As you can see, it pushes all the way down towards the California border here almost versus this morning's run. So you can see things are trending colder here across Pacific Northwest on the European. I'm extremely interested to see what tonight's European run brings. It's going to be very fun watching that one too. Portland could be anywhere from Portland could be left out completely, or you could see a 5-inch snowfall. I mean, really anywhere in between there is in the cards. And plus Portland might get some cold air trapped. It's going to be very cold east of the Cascades. And as this Pacific storm comes in here, look at these winds coming here. Now you've got some extremely cold air east of the Cascades here, and you're going to be bringing some east wind through the mountains here as this big Pacific storm starts to roll towards the area here. So depending on how fast it gets in, Portland could be due for an ice storm here as well. Yes, there could be snow in Port Angeles for that first batch as well, definitely. Well, downtown Seattle right now, we're still trying to work it out a little bit here, but if we back up, you can see this interesting convergence zone setting up across the central Puget Sound if you look closely here. Both, the European's been showing this pretty steadfast. You can see about 2 inches showing up here for Seattle going into Monday morning. Could be pretty disruptive for the Seattle Metro. That would include Everett, the commute back and forth there, and might even clip SeaTac there as well through Monday morning. And then we're going to bring a wave of Pacific moisture off the coastline there. And you can see Seattle, now their total's up over 4 inches, or about 4 inches there. But again, if it waffles back and forth, you can see this morning's run had over 8 inches for Seattle shown there. But again, that colder air, the further south it goes, and it starts to include Portland and some of the Willamette Valley. Well, in the long range, we had a question here. Which model do you think is more accurate? It's usually the European tends to do better, and it's kind of my go-to model here. But I don't feel comfortable making forecasts just on the one model. I like to see agreement between the European, the Canadian, the GFS. And then when you get into the shorter range, I like to see some agreement between the high-resolution models as well. Yeah, East Vancouver Island could be targeted here as well, definitely. There's going to be some surprises, and some people are going to overdo their snowfall amounts by a good margin here once you get the cold air in here. It almost always happens. I mean, Kitsap, you can see here, Kitsap's kind of bullseyed here as well as on the north side of the system coming in here. It's going to bring some wind, and it's going to be a little bit favorable here for the Kitsap Peninsula as well. But again, I get a little bit cautious here when I want to talk about snowfall amounts too much just yet. We're still, what is it? It's Friday night now. The first convergence zone snowfall looks like it's coming Sunday morning down towards the Central Sound, possibly Monday morning. And this system is not moving through until probably late Monday night into Tuesday morning. So we still have a little ways to go here before that Pacific storm gets in here. Yeah, let's do that. So, Let's go ahead and spoil you guys' mood here with the 12Z GFS. Look at the differences here between the GFS and the European. The GFS still shows some dynamic snow up into BC, East Vancouver Island up there, and some areas north of Seattle. The interior could get some decent snowfall here. But you can see the difference in the cold air here. The cold air gets brought much further south on the European model here on the left. The GFS is much warmer and has a low pressure system going all the way to the northern tip of Vancouver Island, and would bring in much warmer air here and really limit the amount of snowfall you would get Seattle south through the I-5 corridor. But if the European comes true, we're going to be much snowier here down the I-5 corridor for sure. Garrett Hartung. Yeah, it's going to be harder to get it down into the southern Willamette Valley, like Garrett's saying. Garrett's a forecaster down there in Oregon, very knowledgeable of the region down there. He is our gorge wind specialist here. He's always monitoring the pressure gradient back and forth. We have that sea level gap down there through the Washington-Oregon border. And yeah, and Garrett deals with those wind forecasts in detail. So he's the go-to guy for especially the Portland area there in the gorge region. Yeah, things can flop pretty quickly here, but once the deal is here really is what's going to happen is we're probably going to get cold air in here, and some areas are going to get a little bit less than what they thought at some point during these last few days, and some areas are going to get more. That's usually how it works out once you get the cold air into the region. So you might be up in the San Juans here wondering where your snowstorm is and how come Seattle got snow, or how come somebody south of Olympia got, that's typically how it goes around here. But the day of, we're watching the satellite imagery here, we'll be able to see these systems rolling in, and then we'll have a much better idea what's going on, which is always the case. Is there a total snow map for the Canadian? Yes, there is. And here, I'll just bring it up by itself. I don't think it showed it there, so we'll do the Canadian here. And this was this morning's run here on the Canadian. You see the 12Z there versus last night's. Both Canadian runs have been pretty good here. You can see Seattle with up over 9, up over 7 here. Even includes Portland on this morning's run as well. And you can see just big snowfalls up here across the San Juan, Southwest BC, Northwest Interior. It's kind of ridiculous here. Look at Seattle, Everett, pretty good amounts as well, all the way down through Olympia. Pretty intense storms showing up here on the Canadian. Really shows some cold air getting down into the region here. And actually, let's show the let's just do 2 meter temperature here on the Canadian. Let's back this all the way up here and compare it versus itself of the previous afternoon's runs. So here we go into Saturday night, and watch the Arctic air start to sag down south across the area. Look at Bellingham, Abbotsford, Southwest BC really start to cool off here into Monday morning. You can see Seattle still hanging right around freezing there, and then by the time we get on into Monday evening, drops below freezing and stays there for a while here. And you can see Seattle get down into the teens. Look at some single digits all the way up there through Southwest BC going on. The Cascades is frigid. Eastern Washington, Oregon getting pretty cold. Look at the Willamette Valley here on the Canadian too. Really cools off. And look at the huge difference down through Oregon here on these runs. I mean, you're talking about Wednesday morning here. Huge flops or huge swings, I should say, flipping and flopping back and forth here for the Willamette Valley. Yeah, the further northeastern Oregon, you're going to get colder, as you can see there through eastern Washington as well. But this latest Canadian, as of this morning, and I really can't wait to see this tonight's Canadian as well. But you're looking at some pretty cold temperatures here as you go on up through, especially northern Washington into BC. Yeah, I mean, we're just kind of looking at this for fun right now. We're still not, don't be taking snowfall totals seriously just yet. Don't make your plans 3 days in advance based on what you're seeing right now. We're just kind of getting some idea of what is coming and how the models are trending right now. Now let's go ahead and check the NAM here. Let's see, what do we got? Hour 40 here. Now look at the Fraser River outflow winds here. I'm going to scroll back here a little bit. Now you can see they're just starting to peek through the Fraser gap here, the river valley, and look at them just pour out over the Puget Sound, San Juans here. And look at them really get going here by the time you get on into Sunday morning here across the area. They start to spill out and push into the Olympic Mountains here. Could get some upslope snowfall there. Some convergence zone activity is probably going to be hanging around Whidbey Island area, areas Everett northward as we go on in through Sunday morning. As you can see that cold air spilling out over the region there. National blend of models, you say? Oh, I'm forgetting where to look at here. Okay, there we go. National blend of models. Let's go ahead and run on that here really quick. Let's go to winter and let's go to snow. It's going to show us 10-to-1 ratio, but we'll just go ahead and do that anyway. And we'll roll out. You can see pretty good agreement here. I mean, this is the one fresh off. This is just off the, what is this? This is, yeah, okay. But look at that. I mean, even down towards Portland, some measurable snowfall, the Cascades, nice amounts here too. Yeah, we have some big time snow potential here coming up, folks, especially Portland northward, really. Yeah, there's going to be some convergent zones floating around up there that are going to be kind of interesting here. It can seem like, you know, actually, let's do this. Let's go back to the surface wind and show that. Let's see how far we are out now, hour 41. It's kind of coming in a little bit slow here. But yeah, you can see that Fraser River outflow just kind of pouring out across the San Juans there. What weighs more heavily? 4 different models in agreement 48 hours out or individual models 12 hours out? Well, if you don't, Andre asked a good question there. If you don't have agreement at 12 hours out, you're still really cautious because that's not a good sign. If you 12 hours out and you got pretty good model agreement, but at that point you can start using things like real-time data and you can start looking at satellite imagery here and you can kind of get a better idea of which model is doing better and kind of make a forecast based off of that. But if all 4 models are in agreement, or the main ones like the Canadian, GFS, European, and the NAM are all in agreement at 48 hours out, you have pretty good confidence in what's coming. So you can start to at least sound some more alarms there. Spanaway, Washington, yes, you have the definite potential for a nice snowstorm, especially on Tuesday. Do I agree with the local news weather reporters? I mean, they're pretty good. Yeah, I mean, they go to school and whatnot. They're usually pretty on top of it. So it's forecasting weather here is always tough there. There's always going to be, you know, you're going to have the entire community miss certain events at some point. We have some really good minds here, though. We have some UW students. You've got Garrett Hartung down there in Portland. We've got a lot of nice weather chasers up here that are pretty knowledgeable as well. We've got Cliff Mass, you know, we've got some pretty good minds around here. So it's, if you keep shopping around, you usually get a pretty good idea and you kind of draw a consensus on what's coming here around the region. Snowless in Seattle asks if the forecast has changed the last few hours. The European came in and it actually came in a little bit colder and a little bit less snowy for Seattle, a little bit more snowy for Portland, but that's probably going to change back and forth a little bit again. Yeah, we can actually look at that here too as well. Is Seattle up? They're not updating that here, but we can do this. We can look at their forecast discussion here really quickly. This is what I used to do all the time when I was younger. I would look at the actual forecast discussion here too. And they've got a lot written up here, but they talk about probabilities and, you know, they have to be really careful here. They're, you know, their word gets out to really millions of people. So they have to be really careful in their wording and they can't really sound alarms like some people on social media. You know, we can just kind of say things sometimes. I work for an airline, so I have to be careful with what I say as well. But, you know, they do a good job at expressing probability of what's coming up here. But no doubt the trend is on the increase for snow across the region. The National Weather Service will use the GFS sometimes heavily, but, you know, they watch the European, the Canadian as well. They talk about all of them for sure. And then as things get closer, you get to watch satellite imagery and you look at real-time data and you start to compare how the models are doing based on actual observations. That's when it really gets fun. Because as we get in here a little bit closer, in fact, we're going to start, Actually, let's just do this too. I'm going to go ahead and look at, oh, that's the wrong one. Let's go ahead and look at the HER here. If I can click on it correctly. Okay, there's the HER. We want the 0Z. This one goes out 48 hours. We're going to look at Washington State here. And we're going to try to look at some of that convergence zone activity coming on here. We don't want both of them there. First, let's look at wind here. So this goes out 48 hours now. So we can, you can see the Fraser River Gap wind coming down here as we go on into tomorrow night. Really start to pour down. And look, you can see that northerly wind start to push down into the central sound a little bit here. I noticed the HER likes to push these northerlies down the Puget Sound a little too fast, and I'm almost sure it's overdoing it here. You're probably going to get a little bit more of a westerly component to these winds and kind of set up that convergent zone across the central sound at that point. I don't think you're going to get this strong of a front just blasting down the Puget Sound here. But let's look at composite reflectivity and type shown. And yeah, I think it's moving this down the sound a little bit too fast. Initial showers, mixed rain and snow. Then you can see some snowy convergent zone bands lining up here across the central sound. Would be pretty interesting, but I think that's a little too quick. It's probably going to be a little bit further north across Whidbey and up towards Camano Island there before it starts to push south there, I believe, anyway, with the HER. Stranded at Costco and sustaining on butter cookies. That sounds like fun, actually. Good source for cloud cover forecast. There's a lot of things you can look at, actually. Like the HER here has simulated infrared satellite imagery. You can see we're pretty clear, but you can see it looks like maybe even some mountain wave activity, clouds moving on into tomorrow morning, coming off the Cascades there. But this shows, at least it's forecast. And you see some convergent zone activity going on Sunday there. So that shows some cloud cover there. You can look at total cloud cover here. It'll actually give you percentages. So you can see overnight tonight looks like pretty clear, but some low clouds around the area there. But some interesting products there on the high resolution rapid refresh. It'd also do a water vapor loop for you there. So there's some interesting tools on there. And actually, let's do this here really quick here. This is, I don't think the HER is handling those winds down the sound well, but let's go ahead and take a look at what it's calling for as far as some snowfall. You can see it just kind of skips right over there. Some rain shadowing still going on here. I think this is moving things down the sound a little bit too quickly here. Yeah, we can look at the icon here as well. This is the 18Z here. You see that interesting convergent zone signature shown there. Let's back up a little bit more here. This doesn't give us a very good look at things here. Let's do this. It's not letting us have all the options because we are not zoomed out enough. There we go. So let's go ahead and do multi-parameter. Let's just do this. Mean sea level pressure and 500 millibar height here. So let's take a look at the polar lobe here on the icon. This is a Germany model here. I don't know how accurate this model is. I don't use it that much, but you can see not bad low placement here. You can see the troughing going on here across Vancouver Island back into Western Washington shown there as we go on into Monday morning. So there's going to be some convergent zone activity coming across the central sound, and it did show in that in some of the snowfall totals. And what I'm interested here to see, does this bring back that reinforcing shot also? It does to an extent across the area there, and I can't even really pick up that next system coming in there, but let's go ahead and look at, let's do 6 hour here. Looks like that might miss us altogether according to the icon. There's a convergent zone there. There comes that slug of moisture off the Pacific. Oh, there it goes there. So it does clip southern Washington, northern Oregon there. And then you can see the next system bearing down on us there with some potential pretty cold temperatures in place. Let's see what it shows here. Yeah, you can see Seattle in the teens, Portland mid-20s at that point. So that's going to be an interesting scenario, having Pacific moisture run into this at that point. Everett Rail fan. We trended a little bit colder in some of the models here coming up. So that was kind of the takeaway from the European. A little bit less snowy for Seattle, a little bit more snowy for Portland. Bozeman, Montana. I mean, you're probably going to have multiple chances out there. The more dry and fluffy variety. Some very cold air. In fact, let's back up. I want to show you guys this really quick. So let's go to the European of this morning. Actually, let's go to this to the control and we'll look at surface temperatures here. This is Fahrenheit, looking at North America here. So put that into motion. Look at that Arctic front coming down through BC there. Gets nice and close to Washington State there. But look at some of this cold air barreling down through Montana. Pretty crazy there. And you can kind of see this. It's going to move a cold front all the way down towards the Gulf states here and develop a pretty powerful storm here off the East Coast. This is hour 144. This would be Thursday morning here. But we're going to get pretty darn chilly here across western Washington and northwest Oregon, it looks like, on the recent runs. So the snow's going to start actually probably on in through Sunday, further up north of Seattle, up towards southwest BC. That's kind of what we've been watching here. Let's update this. This is the NAM 3KM. We're at the hour 56 now. So you can see the Fraser River outflow winds going here, and you can see when they start right about late Saturday night. So there's going to be some interesting convergence zones going on up here. Let's go ahead and look at... Oh, okay, click off that. And we'll look at here. And you can see some of this convergence zone going to accumulate some snowfall up here. And if you guys remember the last few couple systems here, the NAM was not picking up this precipitation that well across the area. Really, that one snowfall we got across the region, the NAM wasn't really showing much snowfall at all. And you can see some convergence zone activity across the central sound here, maybe early Monday morning as well before it starts to sag south. But again, I think that this is underdoing it as well. I think this is going to change. But you can see there's a potential up here as we go into Sunday morning, mainly north of Everett. Convergence zone activity, Victoria, San Juan's, Whidbey, Northwest Interior, Southwest BC as well. I saw at Mike up. What was that, Garrett? Oh, yeah. Slight chance of snow Tuesday morning. Yep. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, tomorrow night, these winds are going to start barreling down. And you guys, here, let's take a look at this. Let's go to actual surface moisture. We'll look at dew point here really quick. So this is current. We're going to scroll into the future a little bit here. Let's go on into Saturday night. Look at that dry air. You can really see it pour out of the Fraser River Valley. Arctic air on its way. Look at this Abbotsford. It's going to be below zero here. This is dew point temperature. So very dry air coming out into Bellingham here. You can really see it spread over the region here too, including Seattle. By the time we get into Monday morning there, look, see these dew points are going to be well down into the 20s at this point. And I think, again, I think the NAM and the HUR are overdoing the extent of this Arctic air initially across some of the Puget Sound here. Yeah, BC residents, get ready, man. You guys are going to get some pretty impactful weather here coming up. That storm on Saturday has trouble written all over it, especially for some of the valleys up through the Fraser River Gap or even the east slopes of west slopes of the Cascades back in the valleys here. There's going to be cold air that gets trapped longer out there, maybe through the gorge here down through Portland. So we have the potential for some ice coming up here as well. Actually, I don't remember if I looked at this or not, but let's go ahead and look at this. This is the European. Let's look at this morning's run. I want to check something out here really quick. We'll go to winter. And we'll go to freezing rain total here. And we're going to, sorry about that. I'm going to back out a little bit here. And we'll let this play. I want to see what is showing for this system coming up here. So watch, we're going to have cold air in place here. And look at this. It starts here and starts piling up. And that would be somewhat of a problem. I mean, a third of an inch is kind of a big deal here, and even shows some up towards Seattle and the northwest interior. Again, this depends on what kind of cold air gets trapped in the region and just how fast and furious this next Pacific storm comes in and at what latitude it comes in. If it comes in a little bit further south, we could even start off as more snow. If it comes in a little further north, it might start off as freezing rain but change over quicker. We're just not quite sure yet. So let's check out, this is the NAM. Let's go ahead and check out. Let's just do total snow so we can see that up there. You can see the convergence zone band up there towards Camino Island in the interior a bit. So yeah, there's going to be some convergence zone activity up there as we go on in through. Starts to pile up a little bit here, even Saturday afternoon into Saturday night here across some of the northwest interior here. And then you'll see a convergence zone signature mainly north of downtown Seattle on the NAM here, but this may be underdoing that a bit. Reflect the Sun, thank you very much for the support. Yeah, we got over 636 watching right now. Very good. So let's compare the NAM versus itself. I want to kind of see what's going on here. And we're going to do... Actually, or we could just do this, in fact. Let's just go ahead and run. So this is actual 850 millibar temperature run-to-run change. So let's see if it's coming in warmer or colder here. A little bit warmer initially. I mean, there's a little bit, it's a little bit warmer coming off the coast here Monday. It's not telling us too much there. So let's go ahead and let's just play this out a little bit better. See, that low is coming a little bit further north than the last run had it, though. So this kind of wanes confidence just a hair here as well. So you can see we're not done with this waffling just yet. So here we go with the NAM. That first initial surge for the Puget Sound area there. Then the next system starts rolling in. A little bit further north and a little bit stronger here on the most recent NAM, but still could start out for much of the region as snowfall for a while here. And depending on what storm, how this tracks after this. But you can see very close here, a little bit stronger, a little bit further north here, a little bit later start of the snow. Federal Way, I mean, most areas have a chance coming up here. Some areas have a chance for some impactful snowfall. We're still trying to work out the details. You can still see the flip-flop going on a little bit in the models here. The problem is that we're right on the line here for some of the areas, especially the further south you go. Auburn, Washington, yeah, I mean, definite snow chances there because this system is going to move into southwest Washington if you believe the European here, and that's going to really spread moisture up towards the central Puget Sound. Yeah, Monday night into Tuesday is probably the best time there for the central Puget Sound as far as an high impact snowstorm. Trying to read some of the other chat messages here. You know, I need to learn more about the weather the Apple Weather app, because I don't know who does it and I don't know how much it's updated. But as soon as the models flip to colder, I see a lot of people showing me, hey, look at my phone app says it's going to be cold again. And so it's obviously listening to these weather models. It's taking some kind of raw data from the weather models. I just have not looked into it that much. I never look at phone weather apps really, just because I'm so in tune to what's actually coming with each one of these individual runs. Yeah, boy, I don't know. This NAM. Look at the NAM just came across here with a stronger low moving up a little bit further north here. That's kind of intriguing there. That's a little bit more agreement with what the GFS was showing here. Let's do the GFS versus NAM comparison. We're not going to be able to get an apt comparison there, but you can see the GFS, how far it has this storm here coming up towards the tip of Vancouver Island. And if we go back to the NAM, put that into motion here, you see that same kind of similar track there. So that's why I'm not fully sold just yet. We don't want to start sounding the alarm just yet for huge impacts, but this would still start out as snowfall for much of the Puget Sound here. And so it'd be several hours of snowfall before this potentially would warm up. But again, are we going to get cold air behind this system? How far north is this low going to form? Still have to work out these questions. Apple is powered by dark sky. I've actually heard that before, and I'm still not sure what that is, though. I've not looked it up. Ryan, thanks for the support, buddy. Very much appreciated there. That's funny. Patty, Family Farm YouTube channels that literally look at their weather app on their watch and says we have to hurry because it's, yeah, I don't ever look at them. I just kind of take the raw data by myself and just, I've been doing it for so long. But yeah, we've got a little competition between the models here. The NAM 0Z throwing a little monkey wrench in things here, bringing a stronger storm a little bit further north. But this would start things out as snow across much of the area still. As you can see, as the storm approaches here, you still have some offshore winds going on here, and there's going to be some cold air in place. If we look at surface moisture and dew point, you're still well into the mid-20s here. This is going to start as snow and probably be pretty impactful still underneath this scenario. I wish the NAM went out a little bit further. I'd love to see how far this cold air comes south behind the system as well. There's still big time questions with this. And the NAM is notorious for being inaccurate at 84 hours. But I do not like the fact that the GFS has the low up here as well. The European and the Canadian both have it down here on the Oregon coast. So is there a middle ground this is going to settle on? Those are all good questions and things that need to be answered here, because it's going to have huge impacts on what kind of snow falls across the area. Then it's going to have huge impacts if the storm travels further south, we get more cold air back into the region. The next Pacific storm could be an ice storm producer, versus if we have a deeper low further north and we scour out that cold air quicker, that next Pacific system would be much less of an ice storm maker than the previous ones. No, we're not pushing back the event further. We're just trying to work out the details right now between the models. Like the NAM and the GFS are a little further north with the low pressure. The Canadian and the European are further south. And really, folks, tonight's model run is going to be pretty important here, just to see if we get some kind of agreement here. If all of a sudden the European starts showing this storm further north, then we can start to concentrate on that a little bit better. But if it still shows it south, then we're going to continue with this model disagreement, which is really kind of interesting that we still have this much disagreement here as we get closer to the event. Josh Palmer, welcome to second tier channel support. Thank you on 15,100 subscribers. That's all you guys. You guys are amazing. This is an awesome community up here. I mean, we're probably one of the tightest knit communities we've got to be really in the country here, maybe in the world, who knows. So that was the NAM 0Z run. So if you check this out, guys. So if I click on here, look at the icon. 2, 3 hours. The icon 0Z just started to run now. Canadian's not going to start running for a bit here. Let's go ahead and let's take another look here. So I know that some people are probably just signed on here. I know that some people are joining the page now, or the chat now. So let's go ahead and look at the 18Z European as well again here really quick. So upper air temperature, we're going to look at 850 millibars here, and we can see kind of the change that we went through here from this morning's run. Or why don't we go ahead and do that? If that's going to let us, is it going to let us compare that? Maybe not. Oh, there it goes. So we have the Ensemble mean versus the actual control run of the Ensemble. So what the difference here is the one on the right, there's 50 different European Ensemble members, and they're all changed a little bit to try to come up with possibilities in our predictions that are incorrect. So the one on the left is based on initial conditions as we know them, and it's run at, actually this is deterministic. Sorry if I said the control. This is deterministic on the left. So this takes the initial conditions and runs them at a high resolution model here. Now on the right here is the Ensemble mean 850 millibar temperature, 5,000 feet. So if we look through here, we can see the difference here. and we can kind of get some agreement there. You see there's pretty good agreement here through Sunday night here on the position of the 850 millibar cold pool moving across Western Washington. A little bit chillier on the deterministic run shown there. Okay, what the heck was that? Watch memberships. Wow, that looks like an impressive gift you just gave there, Josh. That's amazing. So we have 10 new members gifted by Josh Palmer there. Awesome. So the deterministic run is the high resolution. If you look at this, you can see the degree to the resolution here on up there, the 0.1 degree marker there. That's a high resolution European run. That's the initial conditions as we best know them. You can see the Ensemble mean is at a lower resolution run, and this is a combination of all 50 Ensemble members. So if we take all 50 Ensemble members and we change them up a little bit, trying to correct for any inaccuracies in our forecast, we get this run over here on the right, which is the Ensemble mean. Now, the deterministic here is the high resolution. Again, like I said, initial conditions, and it just runs out here. But sometimes this high resolution can work against itself. Any errors can be magnified. That's why we like to run the Ensemble mean as well. And then there's also the control mean, or the control, sorry, the Ensemble control. I'm getting a little bit tired here. Now this one here is at a lower resolution, but it is also of the initial condition. So this one is not perturbed. It is not changed in any way. The Ensemble mean, all those individual 50 members are changed. And when I talk about this 50 members, I'm talking about this here. So if you look closely, you can see the controls at the bottom here, and then all 50 different Ensemble members, and they're each individually changed a little bit here to try to come up and correct any errors that we might make. And then they run each one of those individually, and you can see that they come up with their each individual snowfall amounts for each Ensemble run itself. There's actually websites where you can look at those individual Ensemble runs as well. But when we look at the control here at the bottom, that's just a lower resolution of conditions as we know them to be right now. So you can see the control predicting about 6 inches in a 24-hour period for SeaTac as of this morning shown here. And this should be updated. Yep, there we go. Okay, so we've got the 18Z here. You can see the control didn't show as much, but some of the Ensemble members do have still some big snowfall amounts for Seattle. And that's probably because it came in a little bit colder, and it's going to push that moisture a little bit further down from the Seattle metro here, if you believe that run. But at the same time, the NAM trended a little bit further north. So there's got to be some kind of middle ground there. And looks like I messed up my resolution here a little bit. So let's go ahead and look at this. We've got the 18Z on the right, on the left, and the 12Z on the right here. So we're looking at Ensemble control runs here. And this is surface temperature. Look how cold it's going to get into British Columbia there. And if we scroll ahead a little bit more, you'll notice, like, for example, Seattle's at 23 here, and it's 21 here on this afternoon's run. So put that into motion a little bit more there, and you can see just how cold Seattle might get here. This model trended a little bit colder here. The European model trended a little bit colder there on the 10 a.m. run versus the 4 a.m. run. I keep calling this one the afternoon run here on the left, even though it technically ran it initialized at 10 a.m. So Ensemble mean is the actual standard. Well, Ensemble mean is a good tool. It just kind of gives you an idea of what kind of errors could be in your deterministic forecast, basically. And it kind of gives you an average, and it's really good for looking out a few days into advance. Is there a weather model that averages both? Well, yeah, there's a national blend of models that takes into account, basically, I don't know exactly what models it actually includes. I've never actually looked that up, actually. But the national blend of models does combine multiple models to make its prediction with. And a good forecaster will take the NAM, the Euro, the Canadian, the GFS, and kind of make a forecast based on what those are showing too. Yeah, the 0Z NAM is definitely kind of warmed up while the European cooled down. So this cat and mouse game continues, folks. This is getting kind of nutty here. So let's look at that. Let's look at the NAM 3km here. Now you can see it versus itself here, 850 millibar temperatures. Let's go ahead and just run this out together. Cold air starts to arrive back into Western Washington there. You can see it sag south into Oregon here. Pretty similar here. By the time we get to hour 54, I mean, it's pretty similar to that point. Seattle's still at -12. Portland still at -7. Maybe a hair. Yeah, it looks like the cold air doesn't extend as far out off the coast. A little bit more of an angle here, maybe. So a little bit more cold air spilled out on the 18Z run there versus the 0Z. This is going to be really interesting to see what the Canadian, the European, and the GFS show for the 0Z runs. Yeah, Weather Channel uses national blended models for 10-day forecast. Yeah, it looks like we're going to warm up. Then you always bring that flooding potential in there. Sorry, I know I'm missing a lot of chats on messages on here. There's a lot of chats coming through right now. Now look at that gift that Josh Palmer gave. Nice. Yeah, what's his name? Asked about fun stories from forecasting for the airlines. I have stories that go on for days about forecasting Alaska Airlines. I work with pilots too directly. They have some pretty interesting questions. They're very interesting guys too. And I actually talk to the planes while they're in the air and there's severe lines of thunderstorms out there, and I direct them around the weather, and we talk about all kinds of stuff. There's always good stories going around the office there at Alaska Airlines. It's a fun place to work. So, okay, let's look at, I'm interested to see at what the NAM is going to say here as far as, let's just look at precipitation. So we are going to start off a little bit of rain here initially, probably across some of the Puget Sound before this starts to change over to snow. And you can kind of see some convergent zone bands going on here. But man, the high resolution models did not do well with some of this precipitation coming up here, you guys. So I'm really, my confidence is shaken a little bit, because that last one at Seattle where we had measurable snowfall, I mean, they were not calling for really anything. So I'm kind of a little perturbed by that. Let's zoom in on Seattle a little bit here. Why don't we just do this? So there's going to be some areas up here, and you can see, I mean, this is going to be a disruptive snowfall here. If SeaTac gets 1.6 inches of snow, that's going to be big problems through Monday morning. You can see there. And by that time, if we look at surface temperature, I mean, look at Seattle's in the mid 20s at that point. That is going to be just pure nastiness. I mean, that's a little bit of a modified Arctic front. If you guys look closely and you ever hear me talk about modified Arctic front, the NAM is showing it right here. You can see that change over and start to drop off into the 20s here and push down across Tacoma, Spanaway, Federal Way, all the way down towards Olympia there. You can see that modified frontal system move down there. And this is going to be really nasty Monday morning. You cannot sleep on this first system. I mean, look at some of these temperatures up here. Whatever falls is going to stick and refreeze, especially across the area. But this would be pretty disruptive here coming through Monday morning on down through the South Puget Sound. Debbie Nelson, one of my longtime supporters. Thank you very much, Debbie. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. Yeah, 1996, man, that was a unique system. I can still remember looking outside and looking at my thermometer. It was 29 degrees and it was pouring rain. It was pouring down rain at 29 degrees. The ice was accumulating fast on everything. What an intense storm that was. Well, what conditions can typically cause delays at SeaTac? Boy, you know, it doesn't take a lot because you've got such cold wings of these aircraft. You know, it doesn't take much snow to stick on an aircraft, and you have to stop and you have to de-ice the entire plane, really. And the big problem is sometimes we run into is that the snow falls overnight. You know, you don't have hundreds of hangars laying around. The plane is kind of sitting out there and it accumulates an inch or two of snowfall. It's not easy to get off. You have to take some time. You know, we'll use different kind of methods, including de-ice fluid, to try to get the snow off. But this just takes all the more time to get all the planes clear. But let's see. So we dropped to freezing at SeaTac at about Sunday afternoon. It shows here about 4 p.m. let's say. And then we'll take a look at, we'll go to winter, total snow Kuchera. And yeah, and it's starting to snow, starting to stick. That is going to be a mess across Seattle. I mean, it doesn't look like much. You look at this, but this 1.5 inches of snowfall or inch of snowfall, 2 inches across some of this area here, even higher up towards Camano Island up here, just south of Camano Island, here, Whidbey Island. This is really disruptive stuff, folks. It's going to be below freezing. It's going to coat the road. It's going to freeze on the road here. And that 1.5 at SeaTac would mean business. That would be a mess. Very disruptive right there, folks. So this is going on into Monday morning, the Seattle Metro Monday morning. Really, anytime after Saturday night, you can start to see some flakes flying in the northwest interior here Saturday night into Sunday morning. But by Monday morning here, as you saw very early in the morning, the snowfall starts to pile up across Seattle according to the NAM. Some of the models are holding this off longer, though. So it's still kind of up in the air here. We'll see how this trends. That is Monday AM, correct. And you guys, I'll be right back here. I'm going to grab something, a glass of water here before I go dry mouth on you guys. So stand by 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Had to get some water there. Okay, so let's take a look here really quick. And I want to take a look at this infrared satellite imagery. Zoom in a little bit. This is the GO 17 right here. You can see, are we up to date here? This is 6:30. We're about a half an hour behind. But you can see this Arctic area is on the move. It's on the way. You can start to see it spill out off the coast of southeast Alaska here too. Yeah, I got to stay hydrated, man. Forgot to drink some water this afternoon. Yeah, 2008, that was an epic year. I see some people talking about 2008 December. I know a lot of you guys remember that. Random stuff. Thank you for the support, sir. Looking forward to the snow chasing live streams next week. Yes, indeed. Yeah, that's a very good point, though. As those temps, anything that falls will stick around for a while. Yeah, tomorrow morning is going to be an interesting video coming out because we're going to have 2 new European model runs by that time. We'll have 2 new GFS, actually 3, because we'll be working on the 12Z as well. Snowless in Seattle says, give me an unmodified Arctic front. That's something we were talking about. I was talking about that with someone here recently. Pretty much any time Arctic air gets over the terrain, it's modified in some form. So technically you can call any Arctic front that moves across the region here modified. But at the same time, anytime our air leaves the Arctic, it starts to become modified as well. So it's like kind of, you're splitting hairs at that point here. If you bring a strong frontal system down across the area, you can call it an Arctic front. I wouldn't complain about that much. So basically, we have a good question here there too. That's what's the difference between 12Z, 0Z, 18Z? So basically, that's just the time they run. So it's run 4 times a day. The 12Z is run at 4 a.m. Then there's one at 18Z that's 10 a.m. Then there's one at 0Z that runs at 4 p.m. again. Then there's a 06Z that runs at 10 p.m. So we've got model runs. The major ones run every 6 hours. And for example, the European doesn't run out the model all the way on the 06Z and the 18Z run. Also, it only runs out to 90 hours, and the control run and the Ensemble runs run out to 144. But the GFS runs 4 times a day out to 384 hours. And the NAM only runs out to 84 hours every time it runs. And there's other high resolution models like the high resolution rapid refresh, that runs every single hour. And every 6 hours, it'll run out to 48 hours. Every hour, it runs out to 18 hours usually. Can it snow if the air temperature is above 32? Yes, it can. So that depends on where it's coming from too, and how large the flakes are, for example, and how dry the air is as well. If you have drier air, you're going to get evaporative cooling here, and any kind of snowflake that falls can last a little bit longer. But yeah, it can definitely snow above 32 Fahrenheit. December 1990. Yeah, my aunt got stuck in downtown Seattle December 1990 for 3 days. 3 days. Yeah, David Ned's great point. He works at SeaTac. He knows the pain of snowfall at SeaTac. Even a ½ inch of snow on the airfield cancels flights. Also, low vis will delay flights as well. Yep, good points. Evaporative cooling. Yes. How do you tell the temp deviation versus actual temp? So I assume you're talking about this. Oh, here, let me bring it up. We'll go to temperature anomaly here. Are you talking about the temperature anomaly there? So basically what the model does, if you're talking about this temperature anomaly here, it's just taking the average temperature at 5,000 feet for this time of year, and then it's subtracting that. So basically this air in BC here, I wish they would do the scales a little bit more, because I notice, you know, it pegs the scale here, and I know some areas, obviously you can see here, negative 24.4. It would be better to incorporate some more colors into the scales here. But basically the anomaly is just taking the average temperature for this time of the year, and just kind of shows you how that deviation from normal is. How much snow will Snoqualmie and North Bend get? You'll probably get some snow, but you could get the variance. The amount of variability is still very high at this point, and the impact level is still extremely high. We could be looking from just kind of nuisance, couple-inch snowfall to quite a bit more, and even a freezing rain event also. When do the UW high resolution snow models come into forecast? They're probably already coming into forecast now. The only issue is that the GFS has just been such an outlier, meaning it's just kind of off doing its own things here and here. I don't know. That's my new computer here. So I'm like, I've got that page just popping up every time I click on a new tab. I didn't used to have that. It would just open up to Google browser. So I'll have to fix that. So right now, you can see they've not yet begun here. If you look closely there, you can see not yet begun. So we can take a look at the NAM there too. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look at the NAM here briefly. Oh, that's right. What did I do wrong there? Oh, I forgot. There's something I'm not doing right here. No, we'll back out of that. I'm not going to mess with that right now. I won't put you guys through that. Let's look at, so this will be this morning's run here. We'll do all display hours 1.3, and we'll go all the way down to accumulated snowfall across Washington, because I want to see the convergent zone activity up north. So this is the model that the UW runs, extremely high resolution here, and you can kind of see it in the terrain map here. Does a really good job with the actual terrain features, but the problem is it's such a high resolution here, we don't have enough data to really feed it properly, I don't think. But here we go on into Saturday night, and you can see some of that activity across the North Sound there. And that's kind of what is going to be the first shot of snowfall up here, mainly north of Everett, maybe some of the higher hills as well. You can see it east of Lake Washington, and check that out as the Fraser River winds come across the Puget Sound there and slam into Port Angeles, Squim area as well. Could get some snowfall out of this early on Look at starting late Saturday night there. Keep going on to the future a little bit more. And you can see the GFS has just been so warm with this that I don't really trust what it's saying right now. And this is a reflection. These models are based on the GFS runs. Yeah, I should have done that. I should have changed the homepage back to my Google and browser settings. I just won't do it right now. Yeah, I actually had this monitor and this was not my main monitor. So I switched. I have an older monitor to my left. I do a 2-screen setup here and I put the newer one here. So this looks a lot better. I should have done this a long time ago. Hello, fellow weather nerds. But you can see this only goes through right now. This is only going through 4 a.m. Monday at this point. So this is not showing some of the bigger impact events possible on and through later this week coming up here. But if we back up a little bit here, we can go to the 4 kilometer and this will back us out a little bit more. We'll do accumulated snowfall across the area here. Push stop, put that into motion. Again, this is the warmer side of things here on the GFS. See some snowfall well out there, but you can see some of the snowfall occurring here across the northwest interior there. Eastern Washington, but yeah, the GFS does not like this system coming in here. It's having a hard time with it. Big disagreement really with the European coming up here. And let's see if I can just compare this straight across the GFS. Let's try to do that. So here we got European on the left. We got GFS on the right. Good agreement so far, right? But then look at how the European just wraps it off the continent back into Western Washington here. And the GFS is like, no, I don't want to bring that much cold air in here. In fact, I want to start kicking this off to the east. And the European's like, oh, wait a minute. We're going to even bring a reinforcing shot of cold air in here as well. And the GFS is like, nope, I'm bringing this big mid-latitude cyclone in here that's really going to stir things up, and it's just going to tear apart this Arctic air mass really quick. And I think the GFS is probably overdoing all of that, but it still makes me a little nervous that the GFS isn't in alignment. As you can see here, this temperature difference here is just intense. I mean, all the way down through some of the Oregon coast here, you've got above average temperatures showing up here at 850, and you've got below average on the European there. So we got huge model disagreement. And it does not make a forecaster feel all warm and fuzzy inside when you see those kind of differences showing up. Please let it snow in Yakima. Yeah, I mean, Yakima can get some snowfall out of this here too. Yeah, I'm interested to see which model will budge. You think one of them would start to budge by now, but they're not. The European went a little bit colder this last run. The 0Z GFS, what will it show? This is just nuts. Can I increase my microphone volume? Yeah, I'm a little bit far away from it there. I don't know if that's a little better there. I'm going to have to adjust the setup here. I moved some stuff around when I was setting up the computer last night and I haven't fixed it fully yet. The thing is, when I show you guys this too, if we look at this, I'm just going to show you the Canadian here really quick. This morning's run also versus, we'll compare the GFS of this morning versus the Canadian. And why I think the GFS might be kind of an outlier, but I'm not 100% sure because the NAM kind of swung towards the GFS. But look at the Canadian on the left versus the GFS. It's bottled up into BC there, and the Canadian showing the same thing the European's been showing basically, and kind of doubles down and brings that shot of cold air all the way down towards Oregon here when the GFS is like not having any of it. I mean, what disagreement is kind of crazy disagreement here at 100 hours. Yeah, we got a great weather community here across the Pacific Northwest. This is awesome. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the GFS moved in agreement more, But I also wouldn't be surprised if the GFS moves a little bit more in agreement and the European and the Canadian back off a little bit. So it's hard to say what's going to happen here. I mean, as we get closer to the event, we're starting to get data here from across British Columbia here on just how strong this Arctic air is. And we'll get better and more up-to-date data on what's going on across the Pacific Ocean as well. So each individual run should start to get a little bit better. The GFS was on board right away. Atomic Shockwave asked a good question there about fantasy runs earlier in the week. We're showing the Euro solution was on board. The GFS was really on board for some really cold temperatures, and then it backed off. And the European kind of backed off too. Now the European and the Canadian are bringing it back. It's harder to land in the snow, almost always. Good question there by Jay Talman. It's when you're bringing a plane coming in at high speeds onto a slick surface, it can be tricky. And you have to be really prepared for it. And you want to get good data on what the runway is like. But when you're taking off, you know, you can build up your speed and you're up in the air and you're fine. But stopping on the runway can be a little tricky. And sometimes you can slide around a little bit there. But don't worry. Airports are very safe. They do a really good job at plowing, putting sand down, treating it. You know, we don't ever take any chances when we're landing airplanes. You do not have to worry about that when you're in an aircraft. There's some disagreement here because it's hard to explain it really. The big disagreement is here is the GFS brings some more moisture up here across Pacific, and then it allows some cyclogenesis to develop here. And it's also messing up kind of what the ridge is allowing for as far as the Arctic air getting down into it. It gets pretty complicated there. But again, then it made it a little bit more tricky here, though, that the 0Z NAM did show the low a little bit further north here. So it kind of makes me think the models still do not know what's going to happen. We're probably going to see a little bit of correction going on from the Euro, maybe a little bit further north there. It's hard to say. Sometimes fantasy is 24 hours out, depending on what's coming. But right now, we're still in fantasy land as far as any snow totals for any given area. The thing we're kind of zeroing in on a little bit here is that there's going to be some convergent zone activity Saturday, very late Saturday night, Sunday morning, north portion, southwest BC, northwest interior of Washington, and then probably closer to late Sunday night, Monday morning across the central Puget Sound. And then we got the potential for bringing some more Pacific moisture back in as we go through late Monday night into Tuesday right now. Biggest worry with landing in an ice storm is icing on the wings. The de-icing capability of modern jets is insane. You don't have to worry about that. And even if you do get ice on the plane as you're landing, the pilot's not going to land. He's not going to let his flight controls be compromised by ice on the wings. They know what they're doing. They would go missed approach. They would have the de-icing on. There was all kinds of stuff. They would find warmer air, or they would divert to another airport. So you're in good hands. When you're on a Part 121 flight carrier, you are in good hands, folks. That's why you just don't hear about aircraft falling out of the sky or sliding off runways anymore. It's extremely rare, and it's literally thousands of times safer than it is to drive. Flying versus driving is orders of magnitude safer than it is to drive. Right now, it doesn't look too bad on Christmas Eve or Christmas right now, but definitely check back because, I mean, that's still 8-9 days out at this point. Yeah, that one, the one out in Buffalo there was a turboprop, but those turboprops are really good in icing. The problem there was that they stalled the aircraft, and they went against their training in that one out there, and it was kind of pilot error is what led to those deaths out there with that aircraft. So there's always going to be some kind of margin for error when you're flying. Yeah, bribe my airline pilots to fly around more to get more weather data. Yeah, it's almost time right now, actually. You get some planes flying back and forth across Southeast Alaska, Alaska Airlines. We can start getting some data from them and start incorporating that into the models. I mean, what data from where do these models use to, I mean, it comes from observations all over the world, really. My biggest fear, a stall. Yeah. I actually flew on the Max out to Hawaii and back. It's a pretty awesome plane. And they've really got the training nailed down. They know how to handle the situation with it too. Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't get much harder to forecast here in the Pacific Northwest. We've got kind of a relatively warm ocean out here, relatively warm Puget Sound, straight at Georgia. You've got terrain across Vancouver Island, the Olympic Mountains, coastal range in Oregon. You got the Cascades, you've got the Rocky Mountains, you've got the big mountain range up through Vancouver Island. It's extremely hard, especially when you get cold air. I mean, can you imagine trying to predict the future of a cold Arctic air mass and how it's going to interact with the Cascade Mountains here? How is it going to pass through the cracks and the terrain and the gaps? And how is it going to come over this relatively warm water here? What kind of storm will develop? Who will get underneath those bands of moisture here? It's such an intensely insane prediction, but it's amazing we can do as well as we do, really. Yeah, Light Rain makes a good point there. A friend is a firefighter at SeaTac Airport, has responded to one real plane crash in 20 years. We're getting close to that right now, but honestly, we did suffer a little setback today with the NAM because it did show that storm going a little bit further north. But that being said, by tomorrow morning, we're probably going to have a pretty good idea of what's going to be coming. Yeah, Keith Evans makes a good point there. If that high pressure over BC and Montana comes through. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to go to Northern Hemisphere. We'll go to surface pressure and anomaly here, and we'll show what's going on here. So this is the Canadian model here as of this morning. You see this big Arctic high here over Alaska. That's part of that Arctic air there. Hope you guys can see. This is the North Pole here. This is Hawaii, Pacific Ocean. There's Alaska, Washington, Oregon. You can see Japan is way over here. Here's Russia. Here's Africa. There's Europe. So this big Arctic high here is what's coming our way. Watch this thing kind of march south. Boom, boom, boom. And so you can see that big wedge of Arctic air here. And I'm kind of showing this. Maybe this is a little too wide. Let's go ahead and go in a little bit more to North America so we can see it better there. You see that Arctic high up here? Look at this, a 1063 millibar high. Really big dome of Arctic air. And you can see the gradient as you move towards Western Washington there. But look at what happens here. Look at this Arctic high set up over Montana, right around 1060 here. 1060 across some of Alberta and BC, 1063 up here. This Arctic air is really what's going to drive that system. It's going to impact the East Coast too. And you can see that stretch all the way down into Mexico. Pretty crazy displacement of cold air across some of the northern hemisphere here. But it's what's going to cause our cold weather here. You can see as it marches its way south, we're going to have this little troughing across the area here as we go on in through Monday morning there. Maybe some Central Sound stuff, and then maybe a weak system riding in underneath it there. The Canadian is pretty far south of this system here into Oregon because of how cold it is. And then as we go on a little further on into the week here, with this really cold air in place here, look at this Pacific storm that starts trying to bear down on us here in the Pacific Northwest. And there's going to be cold air trapped somewhere, folks. And this is going to get really ugly. If this were to verify for the Canadian, this would be a storm you'd be talking about for the next 10, 20 years if this Canadian run right here were to verify. Bye for today. See you guys. Anyway, I have to check out. Yeah, we've been on for quite a while here. I'll probably have to wrap it up here shortly as well. But yeah, this would be pretty nasty setup right here. And let's go ahead and zoom on this a little bit more here. We'll go on into the Northwest. Just going to play out what would happen here. So look at this Arctic air in place. This low pressure here would be pulling winds off the continent into this low pressure here through the gorge down towards Portland as well. So if we go ahead and do this precipitation type, look at this nastiness here. Would start as snowfall across much of the region here. Ice starts to fall across Portland here, moves up towards Seattle eventually. And then finally, we would start to warm up here on very late on the night of the 23rd with still some ice here across portions of the foothills, maybe the Cascades, southeast BC here, ice storm possible. It would be a really dynamic system if the Canadian came true, but we'll see if that actually happens. So you can see the first impulse in the Canadian kind of move by, convergent zone activity, northwest interior, maybe through the central sound shown here. Maybe all the way down through Portland, a little bit of snow as well. But then you can see that next wave. The European is much further north with this wave as it moves in here. Kind of misses us here as the Canadian is much colder and keeps the cold air over the region there and then brings another Pacific storm across the area. So this is almost bad enough where you might not really wish for it to happen because this would be pretty darn impactful across the area. Yeah, ice is very bad, destroys the trees. The Cuchera, you guys want to see the snow map for that one here? Let's check it out. You can see the snow pile up pretty well there. Initial stages there across the northwest interior, central sound, all the way down towards Portland. And then you can see the next system. There we go. Some pretty good snowfall before that changes over to freezing rain. I mean, that would just be a nightmare mess. But the Canadian is kind of the outlier as far as that cold air extent is going. We're kind of playing fantasy storm watch there. If things trend well tomorrow, I will do another live stream tomorrow. I do not have to work. But it's always good to kind of be prepared for big winter storms. They do happen here on occasion. So just kind of be aware of that they do happen. And it's always good to have, the supplies ready to go. They can, certain things like radios and stuff like that, you can use years down the line. Cuchera is not 10 to 1. Cuchera actually takes into account the temperatures of the lower atmosphere and tries to come up with its own snow ratio there. And that's something I should have looked at here. I believe there is. So we'll do this. Pivotal weather. It's been a while since I've done this here though, but let's go ahead and go to, I got to log in here first. And we'll go to regional. Actually, let's go to local and go to Washington. We're just going to try to look at this here. See if I can find it. Now I know that there is somewhere on here that has the snow ratio here, and I'm going to kick myself for not knowing it off the top of my head. And I know that somebody out there knows where this ratio is offhand here. I'm trying to think of where that would have been. I'm drawing a blank because I haven't been to pivotal weather for a while. But it will actually tell you the snowfall ratio. So what are some of these questions coming across? Just remember, guys, it's cold air in place. Yeah, that's the problem with the cold air. When it gets in place here, or if we get strong enough off the continent there, it'll spawn that storm further south and keep us colder further north. I work for Alaska Airlines at SeaTac Airport, basically. Well, just kind of south of SeaTac in the Alaska building there. Winter weather, then Cuchera. So we were looking at look at that Seattle 2.6 showing up there. Now I was trying to think of the snowfall ratio though. The Cuchera shows up sometimes. I can't remember which one it was, but anyway, I'll figure it out and I'll probably try to explain it tomorrow morning. Yeah, there was a lot of fog down through the Central Sound this morning as well. What will the weather look like through Spokane? So we can go ahead and take a look at that as well. For some people joining on here late, I'll go ahead and look at that also. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll go to the European and we'll check out surface winter. We'll just go to 10 to 1 snow ratio in inches. There we go. And you can see Spokane can get in on the snow action here too, especially as we go on through Tuesday. Look at Pullman, Southeast Washington, Cascades. Nice snowfall coming up here, folks, if things line up right. I mean, we have the ingredients. Are they going to come together well, or are we going to keep things a little bit further north like the GFS and maybe some of the NAM says, or are we going to keep things a little bit colder across the region here and set up for more snow midweek here if you believe the European or the Canadian? Images by Gretchen. Thank you very much for the support there. Lots of freezing fog right now in Thurston County. Nice update there. Yeah, it was coating the ground here pretty good here in Normandy Park. It was kind of nuts. I mean, it looked like a little trace of snowfall had fallen and accumulated on the cement out there. And it was on my grass in my front walkway well into this afternoon. Couldn't get off the ground there at PWT most of the day due to fog. You are on the battleground down there in Portland, Oregon. Eric Flores asks about the snow in Portland, Oregon. You can see here the most recent European run that we signed on here to do. It does show some snow falling for Portland, but the NAM and the GFS say much less for Portland here, but the Canadian and the Euro say snow. So we still have this disagreement. I was hoping that the NAM 0Z would not do that, but it did. It kind of brought this a little bit further north. So we'll see what it does, though, coming up here. The NAM is kind of notorious for being a little bit inaccurate at the end of its runs for whatever reason, just kind of a rumor, or I don't know if there's something to that. Quinn Fitzpatrick, frost on South Whidbey Island this morning. What time is it? Oh, yeah, 7:30. So, okay, you guys. Well, I'm going to wrap up the live stream here. I hope you guys had fun. I know I did. This is a good time here. I'm going to do another full video tomorrow morning. If things trend well, we're going to do another live stream tomorrow as well as a normal briefing in the morning here. Thank you, Phil, for the support there, buddy. Are there ways to forecast fog? Let's look at that, and we'll wrap up with that. So let's look at the HER 3KM. We'll go ahead and move into, oops, I have to go there first, and we'll go to U.S. states. And yes, there is. You can forecast things like visibility shown here. And if you scroll through here, you can see the visibility. Look at some of these low clouds forming in eastern Washington as we go through early tomorrow morning. Some fog is going to form around the Puget Sound. Might get some more freezing fog tomorrow morning. So if you're a big freezing fog fan, I don't know who you are, but there might be some fog here going on through tomorrow morning again. So watch out for those slick surfaces there. So that was the last one we're going to do here. I'm going to sign off here so I still have some energy to do tomorrow's forecast as well. We'll do a live stream tomorrow too. Also, if things look still snowy for some of us here in the Pacific Northwest. So hope you guys are having a good night. Yeah, so go ahead and check back tomorrow morning and we'll go ahead and do the forecasting. If things trend well, we will do another live stream tomorrow. So